This is one of the best YA romances I've ever read. It will break your heart at some moments. So they both kind of start this fake dating thing. It is one of my favorite romance stories and romance books, and it's tragic. It's beautiful. If she doesn't kiss Jonah and end up with Jonah, she is gonna die. Hi guys, and welcome to today's video. I realized my intro actually deleted, so this is me refilming it. But in today's video, we're gonna be talking about my favorite romance books and romance book series. If you love romance books or you need some new recommendations, sit around, get a snack, and we're just gonna be talking about all things romance books. It's almost Valentine's Day right now, and all I can really think about reading is a good romance book. And if you're like me, then I hope you'll enjoy this video and get some new ideas about new books to read. So let's get into the video. Okay, the first book I'm going to talk about is the romance book that really got me into the whole YA romance category, and was actually one of the first books I read when I was just starting to get back into reading again, and that is none other than Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel and Solomon. I am constantly recommending this to people. I literally just recommended it to a friend of mine 2 days ago when we were at the bookstore. So this book takes place in Seattle, actually, which is around where I'm from and grew up. This is really fun. It's like an academic rivals to lovers YA. Our two main characters are Neil and Rowan, and they both have been top of their high school class for years and years. And it's finally dwindling down to senior year, and there's only a couple more days of the school year left. They've always kind of butted heads and competed to be top of their class. And at the end of the year at their school, there's this sort of scavenger hunt called the Howl, where there's clues placed all around Seattle, and whoever wins this sort of grand prize. I kind of forget what they win. It's been a while since I read it. And the two of them find out that everyone is kind of trying to team up against them so that they don't win, because they win at like literally everything at their school. So the two of them have to team up and work together. And they find out that maybe they had this grudge against each other for actually no reason, and that they actually get along really well. This book is so cute. This is one of the best YA romances I've ever read. I love this book so much. I would recommend it to anyone. If you're looking for like a cute little YA romance, a little bit enemies to lovers, go read it. I guess I'll mention another YA romance book that I love, and I came across this last year in February, and this actually ended up being in my top 24 books of the year video. So if you haven't seen that, go see that and then come back. But this is Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce. In this book, we follow Riley, who has a dream of being on Broadway and just loves everything musical theater. And she actually gets in trouble with her parents for driving to a Broadway play late at night. And so her parents make her work at her father's game store. It's like one of those like board game cafe type things. So she has to work there with her father, and she is forced to work with Nathan right here, who loves Dungeons and Dragons and all things nerdy, and they immediately off the bat don't get along. They kind of bicker all the time. But it's not until Riley's ex-boyfriend comes in one day, and Nathan and her actually start a sort of like fake dating thing to make Riley's ex-boyfriend jealous. And Nathan is actually trying to get the attention of this girl in his Dungeons and Dragons group, trying to make her jealous as well. So they both kind of start this fake dating thing, and it's super fun. And all the characters in this book were so cute. This book was cheesy, but not in a like disgusting way. The second book just came out, and I picked it up yesterday or 2 days ago, and that was Dungeons and Dating. And I'm just so excited to continue this series. I think Christy Boyce is such a good YA romance author, and I'll read anything that she comes out with. This next book is definitely less like happy-go-lucky than the other books that I've mentioned, but it is one of my favorite romance stories and romance books of all time, and that is Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is a historical romance book, and it's actually a YA, and as you can see, I love this book so much. I actually did a reread of it this past summer, and I had the best time. In this book, there are these two love stories that take place, and it's all told from the perspective of the goddess Aphrodite, which is so fun and so interesting. And she's trying to prove to, I believe it's Hephaestus, her husband, what true love is. And so she tells the story of these two love stories in this book to him in order to get herself like she's in trouble with him because she's like cheating on him with Aries, I believe. So she tells the story of these two love stories, and it's the most beautiful thing. This book also takes place during World War II times, and so there's also that war element as well throughout the book. This book has made me sob my eyes out, but a lot of the times in this book that I've been sobbing my eyes out, it's like because it's so beautiful. There are definitely sad moments, so this isn't your everyday, you know, like going to the beach romance book, but I just think the love stories in this book are so beautiful, and I truly think about these characters all the time, and I would reread it anytime. Like, I just reread it this summer, and I'm already looking at this and like skimming through it, and I want to reread it again. So love this book so much. The next book is an adult contemporary romance book, and that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This was my first book that I read of the year last year, and this actually ended up being also on my top 24 books of the year. And this book is just so beautiful. With Ashley Poston's books, a lot of the times they have like a magical realism element, and this one does as well. We follow our main character, Clementine, and she's just inherited her aunt's magical apartment. But the thing about her aunt's apartment is that sometimes when you go inside of it, it will transport you back 7 years into the past. And that's what happens to Clementine when she moves into the apartment. Except the catch is that one day when she's 7 years in the past, this random guy comes in that knew her aunt, and they end up forming a sort of friendship. But it's hard because sometimes when she goes into the present moment, it will take her like days and days and days to go back to 7 years in the past where she's forming this relationship with this guy. It's kind of hard to explain this book. It does have a lot of different levels, and it's very different from any other romance book that I've read. In this book, it will break your heart at some moments. There are also so many good quotes throughout this book that I wish I would have highlighted and while I was reading it. Having known that now, I want to reread it and ultimately like annotate it. Like, I don't really annotate books very often, but this is one that I would really like to do that with. But yeah, I've also mentioned this before, but there's like the guy in this book is a chef, and so there's all these like beautiful ways that they talk about food, and just the food in this book sounds so good. And it just like when I was reading this book, I had to have like a snack with me like the entire time I was reading it. But yes, this book was so cute. I definitely want to reread it because I would definitely say it's one of my favorite romance books, obviously because it's in this video, but I do need to reread it. Okay, this next book, you might be like, whoa, that's not a romance book, but to me it is, because the love story in this book is so complex, and I truly think about these characters all the time, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I think I read this book for the first time 2021, and I actually haven't reread it since because the Hulu adaptation with Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar Jones is just so perfect that I feel like I never really have to like actually read the book again. I probably would, and I think that would actually be really fun to reread that because I haven't read this in a while. We follow our two characters, Connell and Mary Ann, and they both live in Ireland. Going about talking about this book, I actually don't know what I'm supposed to say. We start with them in high school and we finish all the way when they're graduating university, and it's just so complex, like their dynamic, and it's tragic. It's beautiful. I feel like I can't give an accurate synopsis to this book without just like giving it all away, because it's like, you know, on one hand, not a lot happens in this book, and this book is definitely hit or miss for a lot of people. A lot of the characters in this book are very relatable in certain aspects. I see myself in some of these characters. I truly love this book. It's unique from anything I've ever read, and I think if you haven't read it, I think you should at one point in your life pick up this book. So that's all I'll say about Normal People. On a more fun note, I finished this at the end of last year, and this has easily become one of my favorite romance books, and that is The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. I actually listened to the audiobook version of this book, which was really fun because the narrator had this really fun British accent. So if you're an audiobook listener, I would definitely recommend that. But in this book, we follow Delphi, who has just died after eating a microwave hamburger, and like she choked on it and has died. And Delphi is super upset that she is dead, obviously, but one of the main reasons she's upset is that she's never really had a boyfriend, never really fallen in love, and she ultimately feels like her life has had no meaning. So while she's in the in-between place, she kind of meets this girl who is her guardian angel of sorts, and her guardian angel is obsessed with romance books and all things romance. And while Delphi is there, she also runs into this guy Jonah and immediately hits things off with him. But the thing about Jonah is he actually isn't supposed to be in the in-between place. He's kind of in like a subconscious place right now because I think he got some sort of, maybe he was in a coma or had like a concussion or something. I don't remember. But he goes back to Earth, and Delphi is all upset because she's like, this is the first guy that has expressed feelings for me or like interest in me, and now he's gone and I'm just gonna die. So her guardian angel makes it her mission to send Delphi back to Earth, and she has 10 days to fall in love with Jonah and get him to kiss her. But while Delphi goes back to Earth, she actually runs back into her next door neighbor who she does not get along with, and he actually is trying to help her find Jonah, but along the way she's like, oh, is it actually Jonah that I'm into, or is it someone else? But then it's super complicated because it's like, if she doesn't kiss Jonah and end up with Jonah, she is gonna die. But it's like, what's the cost of living if you're not with the person that you love? So this book was so cute. It really reminded me a lot of While You Were Sleeping, the rom-com with Sandra Bullock. I love that movie so much, and this kind of reminded me of it a bit, but this was just so fun. But there are also a lot of good elements too that were more serious and dealt with some good issues as well. So I really enjoyed this book. Such a fun little romance book. My phone turned off and said it was out of storage, but it wasn't, so I don't know what just happened. But the next book I'm going to talk about is another YA romance book, and that is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This book is perfect for any lover of rom-coms, which I myself am one. There's so many details throughout this book about different rom-coms. Like each chapter starts with a quote from a famous rom-com, which I just adored that aspect of this book. But in this book we follow Liz, who is also a lover of romance books and rom-coms, and she's lived next door to Wes Bennett her entire life, and they have just pretty much never gotten along. Liz has always had a crush on this guy Michael from her school. She asks Wes one day to help her to like sort of fake date in order to get the attention of Michael, and I kind of forget exactly why he agrees to do it, and I kind of forget a lot of aspects of this book, and I want to reread it for sure. This would be such a perfect book to read right now during like Valentine's Day time. I think that'd be so fun. But ultimately when Wes and Liz start fake dating, she kind of realizes that maybe she's not as into Michael as she thought, and that maybe she's starting to have some feelings for Wes. I feel like if you haven't read it and you love romance books, I would highly recommend reading this one. It would feel like an actual crime to go about this video without mentioning the Queen of Romance herself, Emily Henry. But I didn't want to talk about each specific book because I feel like they're so popular, I don't really need to talk about them that much. And also the fact that every single one of her books is one of my favorite romance books of all time. So I thought it'd be fun to just give my little ranking of them. I have them all right here, and I read them all in publication order. So my first book that I read of hers was Beach Read, and then People We Meet on Vacation, then Book Lovers, then Happy Place, and then Funny Story. And then her new one, A Great Big Beautiful Life, is coming out in April of this year, I believe, and obviously I can't wait for that one. I'm so excited. But as for these books, it's so hard for me to rank them because I love them all so much. But I think if I had to rank them, I would say my least favorite is probably Beach Read. I've reread all of the books besides this one, so I definitely want to reread this one because I do remember loving it. It's like all of these books are so amazing, so the ranking that I make honestly doesn't matter, but it's just for fun. So this is number 5. Book Lovers is probably number 4 for me. And the top 3 is so difficult for me because I just love these books so much. And my favorite for the longest time was People We Meet on Vacation, but I think this is my 3rd now. I think. So I'm gonna say this is my 3rd. And then I think it goes Funny Story is number 2, even though This is so hard because I love all these books so much. But anyways, I think Funny Stories number 2. And then Happy Place, I just love so much. I know that a lot of people didn't love this from her because it's a little more serious than her other books, I feel like. And it's less of, like, it is a romance book, but I feel like it's more of like a fiction book with like a romance, I wouldn't say subplot because a lot of it is about the romance, but I feel like a lot of it also is about the friendships within. I love this book so much. I will read anything that Emily Henry comes out with, as will most people. I have mentioned this series so many times that if you watch a lot of my videos, you're probably sick of me talking about this series, but I love it so much, and I, again, didn't feel right going about this video without mentioning them. And that is the League of Extraordinary Women series, and I absolutely adore these books. I read all of these last year. 3 of them made it onto my top 24 list of the year, which I think that's the most out of from a single author that I put on my list, I'm pretty sure. Actually, Rebecca Ross, I think, had 3. Anyways, but this series takes place in the late 1800s in England during the women's suffrage movement. And in these books, there is a group of women that are part of the women's suffrage movement, and they're all friends. And each one of these books follows a different woman from that friend group, and they're just so good. It's a historical romance book, obviously. And the way that Evie Dunmore is able to make these books so beautiful and so interesting, but also talk about such important topics, just astounds me. Like, I love these books so much. They definitely are romance books and they're definitely spicy, but like I said, there's also levels to it. The women's suffrage movement at the time, we're talking about so many different issues and so many important ones that are still like prevalent for today. If I had to rank them, my least favorite is definitely the last one, The Gentleman's Gambit. This one we followed Catriona, and I like her, but this book was just a little bit less about the love story that she had and kind of focused a lot about like wrapping up the book, which makes sense. It's the last book in the series, but this one just kind of fell a little bit flat for me. And then these 3 on their own, I think they're completely perfect. I would change nothing about them, but if I had to rank them, kind of like how I had to rank all my Emily Henry books, I would say my 3rd favorite is Bringing Down the Duke. In this we follow Annabelle, and this book is amazing. This is the first one in the series, but yeah, this is probably my 3rd. And then my 2nd would be Portrait of a Scotsman. In this book we follow Hattie, and she's definitely my favorite female character in the whole series. I really relate to her on a lot of things and I really like her a lot, but my favorite has to be A Rogue of One's Own. I love this book so much. The angst in this book, top tier, and the guy in this book, Tristan, I'm in love with. So yes, I feel like it's my duty in life to get every single romance reader I know to read this series if they haven't, because you're gonna fall in love, you're gonna be obsessed with it. All right guys, that's all I have for you today. I love talking about romance books so much. It's such a fun category and one that I've truly fallen in love with, no pun intended. But yeah, also this time of the year, getting close to Valentine's Day, gets me so excited about reading new romance books. So if you have any recommendations for me, I would absolutely love to hear about them. I can always use some more romance recs. I've just started getting into Abby Jimenez, and I need some more romance book authors because I feel like I just read the same ones over and over again, but it's good to mix it up a little. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't yet, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. But yes, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!